The iPad is awesome. It had a bit of a down period where nothing was really changing for a few years, but with the new iPad Pro coming out last year and a couple new additions to the lineup this year, the iPad has thrown itself back into the tech conversation. And I think the biggest difference between the iPad now from 5 or 6 years ago isn't the device itself, but the competition. Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and today we're going to be talking about why the iPad is the only good tablet. It may not come to a surprise to all of you that the iPad as of now is the best tablet out there, but saying it's the only good one in general is a bit more controversial. And when I say tablet, I mean true, real tablet, not something like a Surface that combines the two being laptop and tablet. The iPad isn't a computer, and while it might be kind of trying to replace one at the moment, it's a great in-between device that's practically unmatched among competitors in both price and utility. But before we get into this and my reasonings behind it, first we have a quick word from today's sponsor, Skillshare. Huge thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with thousands of classes in design, business, technology, and basically anything you can possibly think of. A premium membership gives you access to an unending number of high-quality classes from experts in essentially any field, so you can get better at doing the work you love. Personally, I've been going through lessons on productivity for creatives, where Tanner Christensen goes over how to be more productive, something I've desperately needed to be since starting university and not having a lot of time to waste. Skillshare is offering the first 500 of you who use the link in the description a 2-month unlimited access free trial, and from there an annual subscription is less than $10 a month. Make sure you hit that link below and start your free trial with Skillshare today. The iPad is great. Recently, we've seen the new iPad Pro with its near bezel-less design, as well as the new iPad Air and Mini, and we can cap that all off with a budget entry-level $330 iPad that was released last year. The iPad line has never been so diverse, and I think that's a good thing. While it certainly used to be more simple when you could just go to the Apple Store, ask for the iPad, and get it, those iPads always had to properly balance performance and budget. You couldn't necessarily completely deck it out with top-of-the-line specs because you needed it to be cheap enough to appeal to the mainstream consumer. And while Apple has never really been particularly cheap, there still was a balance there. Apple now has many options to combat this, with the new iPad Pro being super overkill for the vast majority of people, and a plethora of options to satisfy the needs of almost everybody else. Are you on a strict budget? Then the 2018 iPad is a solid option with an A10 processor and a ridiculously reasonable price tag. It may not have a laminated display, making it look and feel a tad cheap, but for the people it's targeted towards, that doesn't really matter. It'll play Netflix, YouTube, browse Facebook, and so on. It's good enough, and for not much more than $300, it's hard to complain. Interested in an iPad but want something a bit smaller? The iPad Mini is a solid option with the A12 chip and the price of $400. It's bigger than your phone, but still small enough that it's super portable and makes a great media consumption or mobile gaming device. Not huge on either of those options and want something a bit bigger and better? The iPad Air is for you. It's essentially the old iPad Pro but with a 60Hz display and only dual speakers, the latter of which is probably my only complaint with it. I bought this one personally just a couple weeks ago and I've enjoyed it immensely. If you all want to see it, maybe I'll make a review specifically for this iPad Air in a couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. But anyhow, the iPad Air is a great in-between iPad, and if you are an enthusiast or someone who actually wants to replace their laptop, the iPad Pro is always there in 11 or 12.9 inches. Okay, so if you've stuck with this sales pitch so far, then you're probably wondering where I'm going with this. I'm essentially saying that there's an iPad out there for everyone, and there's not much reason to go elsewhere, especially if you already own an iPhone. But let's look at the competitors. What is the iPad actually up against? If you're like me, you probably can't think of any other tablets anymore, at least recently released ones. There's of course devices like the aforementioned Surface, but those are more computers than tablets, and in my opinion appeal to a completely different market. So what does this leave? Well, we have Samsung's soon-to-be released Galaxy Tab S5e for one thing. This has to be the closest competition to the iPad Pro, being near bezel-less and holding fairly impressive specs. That being said, it lacks the Face ID tech of the iPad Pro and isn't going to be as well off performance-wise. Not that there aren't benefits to it. For one thing, it has an AMOLED display, something Apple's never put into their tablets before. To be fair, iPad Pros do have a higher refresh rate at 120 Hz, something that'll blow your mind when you first see it. Next time you're by an Apple Store or Best Buy, just play around on the iPad Pro, it's really cool. But regardless, the new Galaxy Tab is actually a fairly decent piece of hardware, especially since it's only starting at $550 compared to $800 for the smaller iPad Pro, so it's certainly better value. However, that doesn't really matter. The fact is, very few people are going to buy this new tablet for multiple reasons. First, Android is pretty bad on tablets. It's never particularly been amazing, but back when iOS was fairly limited, it was more or less on an even playing field. That's not the case anymore. Basically, every single app on the App Store, with a couple exceptions, I'm looking at you Instagram, is supported for the iPad, and often they have even more features than an iPhone version would. You can do anything on an iPad just as well or better than on your iPhone, something that isn't always the case on Android. Plus, with iOS, everything is automatically syncing constantly. iCloud, text messages, anything you want to do is just easier on the iPad, especially compared to Android. The latter platform just requires more work to set things up or to do certain things. And like, if you want to do that work, that's fine, but for most people, it makes more sense to get the simpler, more functional, easier to use tablet, being the iPad. It's essentially your iPhone, but bigger. There isn't much room to complain. Am I saying that Android tablets are useless or even inherently bad? Not really. Am I saying that you shouldn't buy them? Not per se. If it's something that you really want or that you'll use, then yeah, I think you should buy it. It's your money. You should be able to do whatever you want with it. I'm not a huge fan of people saying you shouldn't buy certain phones unless it's just absurdly bad, and that carries over for tablets for me. That being said, I'm not recommending you buy them either. In my opinion, and keep in mind this is my opinion, and I'm just a guy on the internet, while Android tablets have their place for some people, they just overall aren't a good choice for the vast majority of people. Just because it works for you doesn't mean it works for everyone, and I think that especially applies here. iPads are just kind of better, generally speaking. And look, I'm not alone in this thinking. The general consensus in the tech community, even if some prefer to ignore it, is that Apple is way ahead when it comes to tablets. If you don't have an iPhone, I understand why you wouldn't want an iPad, but if you do have an iPhone, an iPad is honestly going to be really nice to have. Maybe buy an Apple Pencil with it, something that is actually really good despite a lot of initial criticism, including from me. I thought it was ridiculous, but I got one for my iPad Air, and guess what? It's actually pretty cool. Still don't believe me that Apple iPads are just better? Well, unfortunately, Google does. There's a reason that Nexus tablets are a thing of the past. Google doesn't care about Android tablets anymore. As a result, Android isn't as well optimized as it should be, and so you end up with an experience that feels kind of half-baked. Instead, what Google is pushing is their Pixel Slate, a device that is kind of a tablet, but doesn't even run Android. It runs Chrome OS. It's not even a good device, with lag constantly, and just generally being a poor implementation of what Google was going for. If you haven't really heard much about the Pixel Slate, by the way, it kind of just disappeared into oblivion as soon as it came out, look up some reviews. They're like all negative. It's just bad. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the case now with Google or Android tablets. I think there are some respectable entries here and there, like that new Galaxy Tab. It doesn't look bad. It's just not really worth buying over an iPad. And so that's why, in my opinion, the iPad is the only good tablet. Maybe that's a bit of a strong way of saying it, but I think my point got across regardless. Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm sure they'll be very fun. I know this video is a little bit different from what I've been doing lately, but I enjoy making these more analytical type videos once in a while, and yeah, I've just been really busy with university. Summer's coming soon, so hopefully I'll have time to make more videos. If you found this video interesting, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more content just like this. You can follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at 91_tech, links below. Make sure you also go check out Skillshare. Remember, first 500 to sign up with the link in the description will get a 2-month membership for absolutely free. And with that all being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.